Okay, so this week we are looking at part 5 of the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount. It is a a part of these Gospels that stretches out through about 3 chapters in Matthew and Luke. And so we had to, of course, break this out into parts. And so today's part, we'll be looking at Matthew chapter 7, 1 through 6, and chapter 6 of Luke, verses 37 through 42. And so we'll go ahead and we'll just read through all of it, and then we'll go back and talk about a few of the main points over here. So let me go ahead and pull up Matthew 7, 1 through 6. Let me go ahead and put that up on the screen there. And then, let's see, you can go ahead and read for us Matthew 7, 1 through 6.
Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. Do not judge, lest you be judged. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. And with the same measure you use, it shall be measured to you. And why do you look at the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not notice the plank in your own eye? Or how is it that you say to your brother, let me remove the splinter out of your eye, and see, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite! First remove the plank from your own eye, then you shall see clearly to remove the splinter out of your brother's eye. Do not give what is set apart to the dogs, nor throw your pearls before the pigs, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces.
Okay, very good. And let's see here. Let's go over to Luke. Luke chapter 6. Hold on. Luke chapter 6, verse 37 through 42. You could go ahead and read Luke 6:37.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was reading to myself. My bad.
Oh, sorry.
All right. And do not judge, and you shall not be judged at all. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned at all. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given to you. A good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over, shall be put into your lap. For the same measure with which you measure, it shall be measured back to you. And he spoke a parable to them. Is a blind able to lead a blind? Shall they both not fall into a pit? A taught one is not above his teacher, but everyone perfected shall be like his teacher. And why do you see the splinter in your brother's eye, but are not aware of the plank in your own eye? Or how are you able to say to your brother, brother, let me take out the splinter that is in your eye, not seeing the plank in your own eye? Hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you shall see clearly to take out the splinter that is in your brother's eye.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's go back over to Matthew and talk about this a little bit. Let's see, let me go ahead and pull this back up. Let's see here, 7. Matthew 7, verse 1. This is an interesting verse when we think about, something that people have to say in regards to people judging. Right? And so let's look at this. Let's look at this here. If we pull up here, let's see here. If we pull up, I want to know what this word means here in this verse. Let's see here. Judge. Okay, so King James, judge not that you be not judged, says the same word here. Both times is using this word, so we're able to just look at this word here, which is krino, which is to distinguish. That is decide mentally or judiciously, by implication to try, condemn, punish, avenge, conclude, condemn, to damn, decree, determine, esteem, judge, go to, or sue at the law, ordain, call in question, sentence, to think. And so it has all of these things over here. And so when we think about this, we could think about this from one perspective, and we could think about the idea of a final absolute judgment. Like how if I was to go to court, and the judge makes a particular determination, that's the end of it. Right? And so that's a final judgment. And then there's actually even sentencing that's involved, right? And punishment, right? And so when we think about things like where the Most High, when we see things in the scriptures where it says that that vengeance is mine, says Yahweh. And so when you think about that, that really deals with the fact that this final judgment. And so, sometimes, people will do a thing to you, and you want vindication, you want judgment, and then you administer punishment. Right? You administer a sentence to, this thing that has taken place. And so that is a way to think about judging, right? But also what we see in this here, and it's interesting, we don't see many kind of synonyms with this here. If I could just click on it. We don't see many synonyms, but we do see it in here, this idea of calling into question, to call into question. And so which would deal with kind of I would say like a preliminary aspect of the judgment, right? Because I can see a thing, I can make a determination, as it says here. I can see a thing, I can make a determination based on what I've seen, and then I can say, wait a second, is this going on? Right? Something needs to be, this is something that needs to be addressed. That, too, is judgment, right? If I see someone doing a thing and I look and then I speak upon it, I call it into question, that could be judgment. So there's kind of a big spectrum that's involved in the word itself, right? Whether we're dealing with passing final judgment or an observation and a determination, right? The first thing it says there is to distinguish. And so if we think about the idea of distinguishing, you're just kind of making a difference between a thing in your mind, So by distinguishing, you could look at someone's, say, actions, and you can distinguish or make a determination whether those actions are good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? And that's judging.
Yep.
Right? And so if we understand what judging is, now we can look at this next part where he says, for with what judgment you judge, you'll be judged. And so just by reading that, you can think about the fact that if it says, for with what judgment you judge, that's what you'll get. Right? With the same measure you use, that will be measured against you. And so when I read that, then does that say that I can't judge? Because right there it says, for what judgment you judge, you'll get that same judgment. You know, somehow in the, in this world that we live in, this phrase, only God can judge me.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure where that verse is. Somebody knows where that verse is. Go ahead and drop that in the comments.
This is probably what they refer to right here.
I mean, I hope this ain't it. I hope this ain't the verse, because I don't read that here. You know, if we keep on going looking at what we've read, first of all, if we just look at the King James, what does the King James say? Oh, so the King James says, judge not that you be not judged. This version here just judge not lest you be judged. But when you think about when he adds the seasoning to it, when he starts talking about the splinter and the plank, now he's talking about the fact that if you got a splinter in your eye, no, wait a second. You got a big thing in your eye. Why do you look at the splinter? And so the brother got a little thing in his eye, but you got a big thing in your eye. And you sitting up there talking about the little thing that's in somebody else's eye. If you get the thing out of your eye, then you're able to see it. And now you could talk about the thing that's in the other person's eye. And so these people that talk about this idea of only God can judge me, I'm saying where your verse is at.
I got one for you.
I'm saying where your verse is at.
They probably using 1 Corinthians 2:15.
Oh, okay. So let's see what they say over there. 1 Corinthians 2:15. Go ahead and read that.
But he who is spiritual discerns indeed all matters, but he himself is discerning by no one. You gotta get the King James, because I'm sure most
Oh, here
of
it
the
goes.
world.
It's down.
Yeah, here it
What
goes.
does it say?
But he that is spiritual judgeth all things, yet he himself is judge of no man.
Interesting. Now, if somebody was to say that to me, for instance, I would say, well, if the person got to be spiritual then, right? If I'm spiritual, that means I'm walking in the spirit.
Spirit gonna judge you.
Well, if I'm walking in the spirit, I'm walking in rightness. And so you can't judge me because I'm walking. Not that you can't judge me, but
What can you judge?
I don't have nothing against me because I'm walking in rightness. That's what that's talking about. Right? He who is spiritual discerns all matters because he's in the spirit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But tell that to somebody who think they walking in the
I
spirit.
know, but they're carnal though, right?
Right,
Obviously. But we got some things now. We got some things. So let's look. I want to talk about this because to me it seems cut and dry. When we look at this, he's saying, "Get the plank out your eye, so that you could see." Now you could do with things. He say, make sure that your situation is right. However you gonna judge somebody else, that's how you gonna be judged. So I'm saying that if I'm gonna sit up here and judge you on, cleaning your plate after you eat dinner, for instance,
going in the kitchen and washing it.
yeah, I can't be somebody. I can't be guilty. I can't be guilty of the thing that I'm sitting up here trying to judge you on. Is what we see over here in this.
Yeah.
In these verses over here. If I'm guilty of, like, if I catch you in the brothel, I can't talk to you about going to the brothel because that's where we seeing each other at.
How I always simplify it, I'd be like, can a liar get mad or be mad that they're always lied to? You're a
No.
liar. Why are you mad? You lie, so why are you mad you being lied to?
Exactly. And he can't talk to nobody about that. But if he's an honest person, a person who ain't never been caught in no lie, could most certainly do it. Right? But that's what we see over there in that verse over there in Matthew. Chapter 7. Here, hold on. Before we do that, what is some of these things over here that we see? Let me go up here and see what's going on here in the comments. Deuteronomy 13 says the Greek Testament.
No, that's called a spam, and I got that person.
Okay, sorry. All right, what's this other thing? That's the problem. People think they can have it both ways. They think they can be carnal and spiritual at the same time. Yes, you cannot be both. Right?
Yeah.
You can be one or the other. And the verse we just looked at over there deals with somebody who is in fact spiritual. And they're judged of no man because they're spiritual. If they was able to be judged, that would be them walking in carnality, and then that carnality would be the thing that would be being judged.
But I'm saying that even if they made a mistake, then they'll be convicted by the Spirit.
Well, they should be convicted by the Spirit, but if they're not, but what I'm saying is that if they're not, like somebody who, let's say somebody who is known to be spiritual, they could have a situation of carnality, right? And then be judged on that. That don't mean that you can't, like, say like some prominent religious figure who always walks in, who always is quote unquote spiritual, right? But has a moment of carnality. That verse don't say that you can't judge that person ever. Because what it's talking about is you presently walking in spiritualness. That's the only reason why you're not able to judge. You can be judged by no man. That's the only reason why that don't mean ever. That mean if you're walking in spiritualness, there's nothing to be judged about you. That's what that's saying. Not that you could never, like, blanket, never be judged. Yeah. That's not what that's saying, right? We got to understand the context about, but you're absolutely right. Somebody will pull that on you, but you gotta be able to know what is being said over here. What's this other thing over here? What do we see here? I believe these scriptures should help us to have compassion, especially if we're going through. What scriptures you talking about? Help us to have compassion, especially if we're going through the same thing. Okay, maybe we get some elaboration. I'm not quite sure exactly what you mean by that, but I want to hear from you. Okay, so we look at, if we go back over here and think about this idea of judging, right? Judging, right? It's almost like a thing where people is like offended by you, quote unquote, judging me. You judging me? You judging me?
Well, only people I've
maybe.
heard of are people who should be judged, in my opinion.
I know, but
They
see,
got tattoos.
let me just
and
say
stuff
this.
Like that. They say only God can judge.
Let me just say this. There's a problem, I think,
Stop.
worldwide with the idea of it in general. And so Messiah gives the parameters. But the parameters really is for the judger, I think. It's not for the judgee.
Right.
But what we see is the judgee using the parameters against the judger, as if it's some type of justification for his or her own behavior.
Bad behavior.
And so, if say I don't know, I eat 10 cookies a day. I'm just saying, I don't know what else to say, right? I eat 10 cookies a day. But then I see you, drinking, 10 sodas a day. And I want to talk to you about the fact that you, every time I see you, you got a Mountain Dew in your hand, right?
That's the worst one.
Every time I see you. You'll take that opportunity to say to me, well, every time I see you, you eating 10 cookies.
I know you ain't talking.
Instead of dealing with the fact that you drink 10 Mountain Dews.
Right.
And so,
Right.
but it don't take away from the fact that you're doing some bad things. So what we do is we think about things like, say, this verse over here and say, how you gonna talk to me about this and you do that? And so we look at this, and I think that we take it too far, and we use it as an excuse for bad behaviors. When in actuality, we should be thinking about how we're able to better ourselves instead of thinking about somebody, just the idea of somebody, pointing at you and calling out your situation. Because of this idea that judging is bad. Because of our misunderstanding of this, judge not.
Another thing too, in regards to this judging, we got to think that the master, he always spoke spiritually, and everything starts in the spirit, then manifests carnally. So when you judge somebody, a lot of times you don't have the full understanding for why they're doing what they're doing. Did you inquire? Do you really understand before you pass that judgment? Do you know what they've been through in their life to cause them to think that way or to act that way? So now you're just going to pass judgment when you don't know that having maybe another level of understanding, you can help them.
Oh, yeah.
So now you're going to banish them. Or one of the biggest forms of judgment that we do as people is, I'm not going to associate with this person because what they're doing, which is easy to do. But what did the master himself do? He went to the sinners first. He said, I'm going to them. And those were the worst people. If he would have had this mindset, I'm going to judge you on what you're doing, how many people would have been helped or had the opportunity, or he would have just passed by?
Yeah.
So you want to think deeper when you judge somebody. Consider what their position. Yeah, you might not be suffering nothing that they're dealing with, but think possibly how they could have got there. You got to ask questions, because you don't know nobody till you know somebody, till they tell you, till they open up. Now you're just looking at what they do. I just wanted to throw that point out there.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And also, it causes us to have to remember the fact that just the idea of judging is multifaceted, because we have the various kind of parts of it. When you talk about cutting somebody off, you've sentenced someone.
Yep.
Right. You sentenced them at that point. But when you think about like a judge, like in court, you have court because you're getting the facts. You're finding out, why something looks like it looks. Like I might see you doing things that don't have all the information, but then you have a court, right? And you have a time, when there's fact finding that goes on. Let's look at some verses here. Let's look at a couple of verses here because we want to talk about this idea because this is prevalent. It's interesting. If you right now go on Google and put in "only God can judge me," you're probably gonna get a hip hop song. That's probably what's gonna be number one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
Or designs for tattoos.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I see these tattoos all the time.
Let's look at some of these comments before we go to the verse here. Let's see here. John 7:24. Don't judge according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Okay, very good.
Oh yeah.
1 Corinthians 6:2. Don't you know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world is judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Very good.
I was just thinking about that verse where it says that judgment starts at the house of Yah.
Yes.
We got to be discerning of what's right and what's wrong amongst us, but that includes us.
Right.
So you can't, I think, because Yeshua's obviously, in verse 5, he says hypocrites. He's obviously talking to people who got something to say, has something to say to others, but they themselves aren't willing to judge themselves according to the same measure.
Yeah. And it's interesting that when you think about verse 5, in my thoughts, this is my commentary. In my thoughts, when I see the writers, here, let's just see this. When I see the translators, when they use this word here, hypocrite, I feel like this is like a exclamation point, like how they have it in the scriptures over here. I feel like this is like, he's like, it's like there's action, there's like strength behind it, right? Where he's not just making a declaration like this person is just a hypocrite. I feel like this is like, this is something that's wrong with you right here, hypocrite, right? Where he's putting this thing on, like this is something bad that you shouldn't be doing.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Right? And so when we think about, right, but he's setting the thing back in order, right? Not to do away with the thing, but for things to be done right and exactly, right? And so, hold on, let me see. We get so many comments today. I'm so excited. True, the Most High brings us out of things not so that we can judge the people who are still doing the same things we used to do, is to help them get through it. Yes.
And I think that's what Dara was trying to say. The compassion thing.
Oh, with compassion, yes. But I just want to add. What I just want to add to is because when we think about judging, you guys are doing it. I'm seeing you doing it right now. When you think about judgment, it's like it's dirty. It's like It's bad. Like it's abrasive. It's harsh. It's this thing.
Because most people, when they get judged, they did stuff wrong, and so it's like a
I know, but it's not. It's a necessary thing though.
Judgment is 50-50. It could be good and bad. I mean, you make good judgment calls and bad judgment calls.
But the point I'm making is that the idea of it is good. The idea of it, because we're only talking about righteous judgment here, first of all. But the idea of it is what I'm saying is that something that we look at that it's like you don't want it.
Well, you don't want to go to court about something. Normally, if you go to court, it's because you did something bad. or you potentially, or you're getting
Yeah, in the
judged.
carnal world, yeah. Yeah.
But what the point that I'm trying to express that we're going to deal with some of these scriptures that we're going to bring forward is the fact that judgment as an idea in this world that we live in currently is something that nobody wants. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it because this thing is harsh, it's abrasive, you know. I don't want this thing, but this is a part of this life that we are living in, right? And it's not always, again, it's not always the final thing, right? If somebody's doing a thing that is improper, that's wrong, you've been judged when somebody calls you out on it. That's judgment. It's not a final sentence, but a judgment has been made. If somebody says, "Hey, this thing you doing, this ain't right," right? So that's a part of judgment that people don't want those. And then as soon as you say that, well, who is you? Right? Because we don't understand that this is something that is first of all, it's a necessary thing. But it's a thing that's like it goes right along with this world that we have entered into of walking in Messiah. If I'm light, I'm naturally exposing darkness.
It's uncomfortable.
I'm naturally exposing darkness if I'm light. And me exposing darkness as light to the darkness is uncomfortable. It's abrasive. It don't feel right. Right? How can you love me and talk to me like that? All I'm doing is just shining light in an area that's dark. Right? And so let's look at some of these. Let's look at some of these verses over here. Oh, just the topic. Oh my goodness, just the topic is just causing everyone to just comment.
Uncomfortable.
You're funny.
It's so exciting. Just comments everywhere, here and there. Here, let's look at some of these.
That's the premise of most of the whole book for the most part. Like about judgment, you know. So it'll be a hot topic. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go over to James. Let's go to the book of James. What's James say? James 4. Let's go. Let's say we want 12, but let's start at 10.
James 10 to 12. 4, 10 to 12.
Yeah, 4, 10 through 12. Yes.
Okay. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Master, and he shall lift you up. Brothers, do not speak against one another. He that speaks against a brother and judges his brother speaks against Torah and judges Torah. And if you judge Torah, you are not a doer of Torah, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and destroy. Who are you to judge another?
Ooh. Ooh.
Pulled a sword out on that. That's a big sword right there.
Ooh. Is this a only God could judge me? Right
I mean,
ooh.
but hold on. The key point though, a brother who judges his brother speaks against Torah, so that would imply that the person that you're judging is keeping the Torah.
Interesting.
So then, if they ain't though, then I guess it wouldn't apply. This wouldn't apply to them, I wouldn't think.
Well, we have to always think about the fact that, first of all, the Torah is the standard. The Torah is the standard. We have to live a life according to it. these disciples were disciples of Messiah, who was the living Torah.
Oh yeah.
And so the things that they say aren't going to go against the Torah. So if there's things that we see that are seemingly that could seemingly go against, it's not it going against us. It's just you not understanding the proper context.
Yeah.
And so again, we have to think about this idea of judging, right? And so it being a thing that's really on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I can make a final judgment on someone, against someone, a final determination where it's over and done with, right? And there's no coming back from it, right? And so
You saying you can? Or
I can do that.
Okay.
And what this verse I think is saying, that if you go ahead and do that, you haven't left room for
Golly.
a return.
Oh yeah.
And so in that
For
way, if I was
repentance?
to do such a thing, that is a way that I could be judging someone and going against the Torah. And that's a way that I could be judging someone and not dealing with the fact that there is, in fact, one lawgiver and one judge and one person who's able to save and to destroy.
That's right.
Right? And so if I can think about the fact that if I want to sit up here and as Elder One-Thumb brought up this idea of like cutting people off, that would be me judging somebody in a way, forever. Like there's no comeback. I'm done with you forever. Right? That would be a way in which I would be doing something and operating outside of Torah because I'm not leaving room for reconciliation.
Forgiveness.
We can't say that James is talking about the idea of somebody not judging. Because Yeshua just told us how we could judge, which was first get the log out of your eye so that you could be able to see clearly and then make a proper judgment. Right? And so we can't think that James is saying something different than what Yeshua is saying. What he's doing is he's giving you another perspective over here. Oh, what do we see over here? Let's see. I'm seeing these comments over here. Judgment is, let's see here.
You see it, Dasa?
Judgment is to show you what you've been doing wrong so that you can change it and start to do it in the correct way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's judgment. But when you're doing something wrong, and many times we enjoy doing the things that we do, and for someone to come along and say that thing that you enjoy doing is wrong, you shouldn't be doing it, stop doing it, it feels funny. And I'm saying it feels funny kind of in a euphemistic kind of a way, not ha funny.
So,
Right?
awkward.
Right? What else do we have here? Judgment is Torah. Ha ha ha. LOL. People may say they are spiritual and only God can judge them, but the scripture says the law is spiritual
Oh, yeah.
and set up judges. There is a measuring line. I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that, of course, we'll look at that. I want to look at a couple more things though before we go over to that. What is it?
I think that whenever we look at this and it says, it's talking about being humble too in judgment, because when you're approaching it from a place of humility, you're not going to be so quick to cut people off all the way. I know that there's been times of where we've judged on different matters, and years later we can see that people have changed over time and have come closer, if not all the way, but come closer to what, they were admonished about. And so they maybe even not from what our conversations were, maybe their experiences or maybe the Most High speaking to them brought them to a place that is definitely, like when we look at it, it's definitely a change in course from where they was at before, even though they may have even rejected it at that time.
Yes, because people are at different, people go through different stages and things and so on and so forth. And so, the one thing that people are not able to accept at one point in life, life happens, and sometimes you're able to see the light and, move out of the darkness. So let's look at we'll look at 1 Corinthians 4:4, but just read up. We'll look at 1-4 just to get the context here.
Okay. Let a man regard us as servants of Messiah and trustees of the secrets of Elohim. For the rest, it is sought of trustees that those should be found trustworthy. But with me, it is a small matter that I should be judged by you or by a man's court. But not even myself I judge. For I am not conscious of any matter against myself, yet I am not declared right by this, but he who judges me is Yahweh. Oh, that's another one right there. Hold on. The people,
is this
people
only God
people
could
can't
judge me verse? I don't know.
It could be, but I'm about to say the people that would say that wouldn't know this verse. You gotta study to know this verse right here. I gotta look at the KJV because I'm sure I read it, but the way that it words it right here is definitely different for this topic. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, but we have to understand the context. Again, context is everything.
Yep.
Right? He says in verse 4, but with me is a small matter that I should be judged by you or by a man's court, but not even myself I judged. And so when we think about the idea, even Yeshua says the idea, you should, deal with somebody, and reconcile with somebody, because once you go, and I'm paraphrasing all this, once you go and deal with the magistrate, whatever they say goes. And so once we enter into that other world and deal with those people and their judgments, you're at their mercy.
That's why, like, some people, they want to try to drop charges against someone, but they went too far into the process of putting the charges on the person.
Yeah, so once you get into that situation, and deal with those people and their laws and all of that, you get to a point of no return, and there's nothing that could be done.
That's right.
And so, we have to think about the fact that, again, if we think about what, this is 2 chapters before verse chapter 6 we just looked at. If we're walking in Messiah, we don't have these issues. If we're walking in the Spirit, we don't have these issues, right? And so we have to be able to understand that, you're able to walk blameless and don't have to worry about nothing. No judgments from nobody, because you're walking in uprightness. Then you could really say nobody could judge me. But the Most High. Because you walking in rightness. But if you not walking in righteous, that righteousness, that's a whole other situation.
Yeah.
Right? That's a whole other situation. And I'm trying to look at these things, but people keep on people keep on talking about the things that that we going to, so we might as well just go there, right? Because Moses, it talks about Moses as we see over here. Moses establishes the captains, tens, hundreds, thousands to judge.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When we think about the time when man added to the Torah, when man established a Torah law, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, says to Moses, you need to be doing this. And then Moses goes to the Most High and say, could we listen to Jethro and add this to the Torah? And the Most High agrees. And so when we think about the idea of judging in a functional society, which we see inside of Torah and Israel, that's what we see. There are judges, right? It's interesting when you think about the traditional prayers in the Amidah. There is the section of restoration of judgment, of justice, where it says restore our judges, and in the earliest time, as in earliest times, and our counselors at the first. Right? Hold on, let's see. Let me see. What's this say over here? Let's go over to Isaiah. Let's go over to Isaiah. Because I'm saying that we gotta really think about, because the character, Torah is the character of the Most High humanized.
Okay.
When we walk in the character of the Most High, we walk in a particular way. And there's things that we manifest when we walk in that way. And so we have to understand what light looks like, what it looks like to be a light in the world. Guess what? Being a light in the world looks like judging people. As much as you don't want to be judged or want somebody to talk to you about judging, you're so judgy. You're so judgy. Like that's a thing that somebody could be. But guess what? You being a light is you being judgy.
Because even when you do things a certain way, people take that as judgment against them. And meanwhile, it didn't have nothing to even do with them. It's not even like you being, every time I talk, I be forgetting words. What's the word? Where you kind of like imply something to someone. The slaves would do it to people. Signifying, yeah. It's like, there are people, and I cannot, that's like such a passive aggressive thing when people signify things. Just like really just gets at my bones when they like signify.
But are they right though?
Well, I'm saying no matter if they're right or wrong. But if signifying is not a good thing. But when people are just living their life in a right way, that people will take that without them saying anything to someone else. The people who are in the wrong will take that person living their life in the right way as a judgment against them.
I think that I just exhibited that with my child today. If you make just a basic declaration about something, somebody did this or that. If you wasn't the one that did the this, or the that, you probably won't have anything to say. But oftentimes the guilty party will try to make an excuse for themselves, even if nobody directly said you're the one that I'm talking to. You got a guilty conscience, so now you want to say it. So if somebody says a thing, They're not. You're saying that they're being passive aggressive
Well,
or
some people
signifying.
are.
Some people could be doing that.
Maybe
But,
don't they signify.
but sometimes they could just be saying a thing, and that thing that they said, I know they didn't just say that. Is they talking about me, and then you feel the need to sit up there and say something about it? You probably guilty of the thing. But I wanted to look at this verse over here. At this verse, Isaiah. Read Isaiah 1:26.
Isaiah 1 verse 26. And I shall give back your judges as at the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. After this you shall be called the city of righteousness, a steadfast city.
So something that's associated with this people being steadfast and righteous is having people that are judges and counselors.
Hell yeah.
Like, it's interesting that these things are connected with one another. Like, we should covet that. Like, I want to be walking wrongly and somebody look at me and say, hold on, you walking wrongly. And me say, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm going to walk rightly now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I want that. What kind of person would I be who says that they're walking with Messiah, who turns the wrong direction and don't have nobody to say, you made a wrong turn.
Come back.
This over here, this verse here is talking about this place, this city, which he's talking about a people who righteousness and steadfastness is associated with them when they return to having judges and counselors, which is returning back to Torah. That's returning back to Torah, because let's go over to Exodus 18. Exodus 18. Exodus chapter 18. Read for us 21 through 23.
Exodus 18:21. But you yourself seek out from all the people able men who fear Elohim, men of truth, hating unfair gain, and place these over them to be.
Hold on. Pause.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
These people over here who he's talking about, there's credentials that they need.
Right.
Right? It's a necessity for them to not have logs in their eyes.
Yeah.
These people fear Elohim. They're men of truth. They hate unfair gain. They hate it. Wow. Okay, keep on going.
And place these over them to be the rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And they shall rightly rule the people at all times. And it shall be that they bring every great matter to you, but they themselves rightly rule every small matter. So make it lighter for yourself, for they shall bear with you. If you do this work, and Elohim shall command you, then you shall be able to stand, and all this people also go to their place in peace.
So this was a way for Moses to be able to not go crazy in this new community and society that they were creating. And it had to do with people making and being able to make right judgments about things, to see mishaps and to address the mishaps. If it was a small matter, then they did it. But if it was a huge matter, Moses would do it. But at the end of the day, somebody did it. And so this is Torah. And so what we got to understand is that, and most importantly, these people are walking. These people are spiritual,
Supposed to be.
right? These people are
It's
spiritual,
God's spiritual community on earth.
right? And so this verse over here agrees with the first one looked at in chapter 6, where it talks about this person who is spiritual. No man could judge him. No man can't judge this person either, because he's fearing Elohim. He's a man of truth. He hates unfair gain. But the thing that he's going to be dealing with is people who is messing around with lies, who's doing unfair gain, right? He's going to be addressing all of the things that he don't have issues with. And so this agrees with what Messiah is talking about as far as this planking these specs. Like, we need for people not to have things in their eyes.
Yes.
But if you got something in your eye, you can't be the one that talks about people with stuff in their eyes. But somebody got to talk about the thing that's in your eyes.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to get the things out of their eyes.
That's right. That's right.
Somebody got to do it. It can't be where nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
But qualified people need to be doing it. And I think that's the thing that we got to concentrate on. When we look back in Matthew's, where Yeshua is talking about these hypocrites, he's calling them hypocrites because they is sitting up here not fitting this criteria over here from Exodus 18 and 21. They're not fearing Elohim. They're not being men of truth. They're not hating unfair gain. They're sitting up here and got these big, huge issues and want to sit up there and pick at these little issues that other people have. But he said first, I'm back in Matthew chapter 7. First, the first thing you do is remove the plank out of your own eye. Then you'll see clearly to remove the splinter out of your brother's eye. Now this should end it all right here. He's not saying don't try to get a splinter out of somebody's eye. He's saying before you sit up here and try to judge, make sure that you are able to withstand the judgment that you're trying to dish out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he said. Right? And so we have to be in a place where we covet judgment. Judge me.
Yeah.
Judge me. What you gonna find? What you gonna find?
Yes.
Find
Exactly.
something.
When you doing the right thing, there's no need to be afraid of judgment.
Right. Exactly.
Be afraid.
Search my vehicle. What you... Search my vehicle. What you gonna find? You ain't gonna find nothing unless you put it there.
Check my record.
You know what I'm saying? That's why people don't want to be judged, because they scared about what somebody gonna find. If I know you ain't gonna find nothing, it don't matter.
That's the number one thing that'll tip the cops off. No, you can't search my. I don't want you to search it up. He got something. He had something.
I know. Well, why not? You causing yourself to be suspicious.
I mean, people don't want you. I've experienced people not wanting me to come to their house. I literally have experienced that. I've experienced people like, I don't want to use the word, because it's not scared. It's just they don't want that. They want to, they don't want someone to come around who could potentially say something.
I know, and you might not even be on that.
And I'm not even looking at that or thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's
But
go.
I think that, can I just say
Go
one
ahead.
thing? I'm sorry. I think that was one reason that at least some people didn't really care for our community, because of having elders and having people that men that judge and judge issues that might arise, because they don't want to. They just want to do whatever they want to do. Everyone does whatever they want to do. And when I say that, I'm not saying it. I'm saying that people just literally do bad things even that they want to do. Like, I'll give an example. Smoking weed at Sukkot, defiling the holy day. You know what I mean? Coming to service high or hungover. Speaking down or abusing their wives. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so it's kind of like when people have to or confronted about these very real behaviors that they're doing, not in a way that's like, we never want to see you again, but we want to help you to figure out how not to do this.
Mm.
People take offense to that, and they use words like sunning or what's the other words? I don't know all the words.
You gotta put away your pride. Accept
They don't want to come under any sort of authority that's going to help them to change.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like this. People, the thing that you're describing, it really is anarchy. If you don't have any rules, if you don't have any structure, that's anarchy. There got to be rules. There got to be structure. There have to be things in place.
Mm-hmm.
And the main issue that we see in the scripture is understanding that the people who set these things up, that has to do with the body of Messiah, got to do with structure.
Hell yeah.
Yeshua said, "Go out and make disciples."
That's what he said.
And so the idea of discipling someone is the fact that somebody's teaching you something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, this is just basic. Like, if you can't understand these basic things, then, I don't know. These are like elementary, things.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like, I can't do anything without somebody showing me how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got to show me how to do it.
Yeah.
The other day, we have to deal with this crane operator at work. And the crane operator sometimes has to put the thing that he's carrying, this heavy load, in places where he can't see. And so he needs somebody on the ground who's able to see to give him signals on what to do. I had signaling class for like a week, probably 10 years ago. I don't know these hand signals. I don't know them. So I go over to the crane guy and like, look, I need you to put this lift down in this pit, but I don't know how to tell you how to go up and down and left and right and all this. You got to tell me what to do. Because I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need somebody to tell me. So I went to the expert. I went to the crane guy himself. And he told me the symbols, the things to do. And then I went over there and did it. Because
Did he sun you?
I don't consider that him sunning me. I went to him. and
Take you back to elementary school. Like,
He
people be acting like that.
he
They be
had
like,
to show me.
But people be like, I had a dad and he raised me up for this much time.
but
now I'm
this
a
is
grown person.
this is the
now
problem.
I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do.
This is the
Right.
I don't want you
problem.
to
This
judge
is
me.
a huge problem. This is a huge
Right.
problem in the world in general. Is that you're not able to just be able to accept the fact that
You don't know.
you don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that I can sit up here and say that I'm an expert at. And then there's also things that I can sit up here and say that I don't know anything about. And I'm willing to go to the person who is able to help me in those areas that I want to have help in. The things that I want to learn about, I go and talk to the expert about it.
Oh,
And then if somebody wants to learn about the things that I'm expert in, they could come to me, and then I could talk to them about that thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert in everything by any means.
Oh yeah.
but see,
But I'm able to go to somebody and talk to them, the expert, about these things. And so why is it different when we talk about the body of Messiah?
Oh yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah. Ain't different.
We need one another. The Most High has given his people specific gifts, and he didn't give everybody the same one.
you hear me?
Go ahead.
What Tirsa said was exactly right. She's like, so is he sonning you? Yeah, he is sonning you. Because what are you supposed to go to the Father for direction and guidance? So we're just doing it in terms of knowledge. If we're all down here, no man can know all things. We know even the Master himself, he was taught under other men, even though he had the Holy Spirit. Perfect example is we go to Matthew 18, verse 3.
Let me pull it up.
Because it's crazy because, well, let me read it first. Matthew 18, verse 3. And he said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become as little children, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens. So that means, yeah, you have to humble yourself like a child when you come up against someone with more wisdom than you. And that's in all things. That's how you learn.
That's in all things, yeah.
That's all things. That's such a basic principle, basic value. Oh, this person knows, but let me go ask them. Or instead of figuring out yourself. We know, like, trial through experience, that's the roughest teacher because you don't know the outcome of it. But somebody who already did it, why not go talk to them first? Why not glean from them? So that's it.
Yeah, I don't need to go out here and scrape my knees and learn a lesson. I could just find out how to do it the right way. Why would I sit out here and try to hurt myself when I could just find out how to do it right the first time? And so we do this in all areas of life, except where it has to do with these things that pertain unto the Most High. The Spirit is the Spirit is my teacher. Meanwhile, that's not what we see in the scriptures.
Oh yeah.
I want to go over. I want to come back to Matthew chapter 7, but I want to go back to Luke. I want to look at Luke, where he's talking about the same thing in Luke chapter 6, real quick before we go to the end of Matthew chapter 7. Luke 6. Luke 6:37. And look at some of these things over here. Because when we think about these verses over here, you know, they're in agreement with what it is that the Messiah is saying in terms of the whole plank and the splinter thing, right? Judge not, and you shall not be judged at all. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned at all. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. And so when we think about what it is that the Master is saying over here, we have to think about, you know, where we are in a thing. If I am not in a position to be condemned, then I don't have to worry about anybody condemning me, because I can't be condemned because I'm doing things, I'm living the way that I should be living, right? If I'm not able to forgive, how am I at the same time able to receive forgiveness? Right? But if I'm easily able to forgive, I'm probably also able to receive forgiveness.
Just like those brothers in the Torah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Right? And so, but it's interesting when he goes down here where he's talking about this, the blind leading the blind. Right? The blind leading the blind, they both going to end up falling in the pit. Right? And so if somebody who has something that's blocking his vision is trying to help somebody else who got something that's blocking their vision, neither one of them is able to do anything. It's interesting also when we think about this system, I want to say, that Messiah, he's not setting it up, but he's definitely is a propagator of the idea of there being a disciple, of being teachers. There's a model, right? A standard, right? There's a teacher, and he has disciples. And then it's interesting where he even says in verse 40, read verse 40 there.
Okay, Luke 6:40. A taught one is not above his teacher, but everyone perfected shall be like his teacher.
This is an interesting verse because he's giving you this model, right? The disciple, when he's a disciple, he's not above the teacher. But that disciple at some point reaches maturity where he actually becomes a teacher. And so when we think about that, like the idea of like what we see really in this world of church, right? Where you're just perpetually a pew warmer. Somebody who goes to church, right? It's an interesting idea, but this is not the thing that Messiah instituted, really. This idea. He went along with this system of actions that he saw in his culture, where you had a teacher. He acquired students. Those students learned for a time and reached maturity, and then they would go out, and then they would be teachers, and then they would have students, and then those students would mature and grow in maturity, and then they would go out, and so on and so forth. And so there's a model that while you're a student, while you're a taught one, while you're a disciple, you're a learner. That's what your classification as a taught one, as a disciple, is. You're a learner. And so you're not above the teacher. The teacher he's learning. I mean, he's learning you. He's pouring into you, but at some point you get filled up, and then but everyone perfected, everyone who reaches a point of maturity shall be like his teacher. In what way? You'll take the lessons that you learned from your teacher, and then you'll do the same thing he did for you, and you'll go out and you'll teach people. And so when we think about this model that he created, he's also agreeing with this idea of judging. He's agreeing with it. And he's promoting this idea and causing us to be able to understand the fact that we need people in our lives to call attention to things that's going on, potentially going on in us and with us, and help us to move away from certain things. Like it's just part of our culture, this is. right when we see, let's look at some of these comments because they agree with what I say right here. Let's see. There are also judges who specialize in different divisions of the law. I see this as a creator knows that we're not all completely perfect, but we all are in need of judgment. Yes, yes, exactly. Ezra 7:25, and thou Ezra, after the wisdom of thy Elohim, that is in thine hands, set magistrates and judges that may judge all the people. These are parts of this life that we live in. And so again, when we think about what it is that the master is saying over here, he by no means is saying that we shouldn't be out here judging. What he is saying is that we need to be walking in righteousness so that we can be able to be qualified to be out here judging. Okay, so let's go back briefly before we end over here, because when we go back over to Matthew chapter 7, there's some interesting thing over here that is, I wanted to bring out here. Matthew 7 and 6 actually. Can you read verse 6 there for us again?
Do not give what is set apart to the dogs, nor throw your pearls before the pigs, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you pieces.
Okay, very good. So I think for from one perspective, thinking about this really in the context of judgment. When we think about from a spiritual perspective, dogs, pigs, these things that are unclean, pigs, these dogs, these, it's interesting when we were in Dominican Republic, is so many just wild dogs just going around. Like we in America, I don't want to say that people don't keep dogs as pets over there. I'm sure that they do. But just from the little bit of time that I saw more stray dogs than I saw people just walking their dog. Not to say that they don't do that, but it's just giving me the idea of just these stray, just animals just going about.
Lone wolves.
Right? And
Lone wolves, really.
yeah, well, except for the gang we saw, the dog gang that we saw. But when you think about this from a spiritual perspective, in the context of judging, it don't make any sense. It's totally pointless for you to try to bring judgment to somebody that's on the outside, someone that's not spiritual, because they're really going to be the ones that sit up there and say, only God can judge me. You can't judge me. You're not my judge. Right? Somebody who's not thinking about things from a spiritual perspective. So when you try to come to somebody in righteousness and pointing, shedding light on someone's darkness, they just trample it. They just trample on it underfoot. It's there's no respect.
They act like it's foolishness.
There's no respect given to it whatsoever, right?
They laugh at it.
They do laugh at it. They laugh at it. There's no respect, right? And so, from one perspective, when you think about, especially in the context of what we see over here with this idea of judgment, this is what comes to mind when I think about this idea of not giving that which is holy to the dogs and throwing your pearls before the pigs. I think about this the book, quote unquote, when people have their little things that they say about various pagan times, like we do when these times come about, and we talk about, I've done it too. I get caught up in all of these things, but the people, for the most part, when you're sitting there saying your things that you want to say about this or that, the people who agree with you are going to like it, and the people who don't agree are just going to keep on scrolling. It's just like throwing your pearls before swine. It's just like giving that thing which is set apart to the dogs. The people who already like it, they'll like it. People who don't like it, for the most part, are going to look at it and say, maybe they're right. Maybe I should do some research on this. For the most part, that's not going to happen. And it caused me really to think about the fact that Yeshua, when he spoke, for the most part, is in parables. He's speaking in parables. We don't, when we think about doctrinal things, we don't see those things in red letters. There's no doctrine in red letters in the Bible. That's not, Yeshua didn't do that. He spoke in he performed miracles, and people came because of the miracles that he performed. And he taught the people in kind of a relatable way that they was able to understand, and they came that way. And then once they came close, then now he gets deeper into the situation. But when you think about it, he really wasn't teaching them other people that much either. He was paying attention to the people that was the closest to him, and they was getting all the good stuff.
They didn't know what he was talking about.
They didn't hardly know. But they was getting more than the other people, though, is what I'm saying. And so when you think about Messiah as the master teacher and what he's saying over it, because this is a very it's a pretty interesting thing when you think about it. But when you think about the way that Messiah actually operated, he wasn't out here giving the people these deep doctrinal theses. Is that how you say plural thesis? Theses about things, right? Just basic. You need to repent, right?
Talking about agriculture, talking about sheep, talking about building.
Yeah, all those things really just had to do with you
harvest,
turning yourself around and going in a different direction. And there's a way that you should be going that you may or may not be currently going. But, it's interesting when you think about this verse over here where he's talking about these, because when you get into these situations, because, it's something that I think, should be mindful of when we even think about the idea of dealing with people in general, kind of putting it in the context of what we see over here in terms of judgment, differentiation, understanding a distinction. We have to kind of know who it is that we are speaking to. Because people going to look at you a different kind of way already, because you already walking in a particular way. So you might not even be kind of on a tip where you're, literally judging, quote unquote, somebody, but because of who you are already and their knowledge of you, potentially they're looking at everything that you saying as if, you kind of against what they are in their situation. And so looking at Yeshua and the way that he moved, he spoke harshly to those that were in the know. And those that should know better, he spoke to them in a particular way. But the other people, he was kind of soft to those people. He was nice. He said nice things to them, or he said things that caused them to have to seek out more, to seek answers about a thing, right? Where they would become curious about a thing and want to come and understand more. And so I think that is interesting, and it kind of helps for us to be able to understand that, there's kind of a basic thing that, as far as dealing with people that are on the outside, there's kind of a basic kind of a thing that we should be dealing with in terms of that, and helping people to understand that is a necessity for everyone to come to the master, to turn away from sin, to look towards the kingdom of Elohim, and seek and strive to enter in. And then once that change, that pursuit has taken place, now it's time for you to start trying to understand different things. But the most important thing is for you to understand, to first repent and seek the kingdom of Elohim. And so I think that when we think about this verse number 6 over here, we're talking about this idea of holy things to the dogs and throwing your pearls before swine. You can't really get into these different deep doctrinal things with people and think that that's going to be something that is life changing and transformative, right? Because the hearer is never going to be able to follow you on these things, and they're going to deal with these things and tear them up into pieces, right? Mm-hmm. If that tearing up is only just they're not having the proper level of respect or understanding for whatever it is that you're giving to them. And so I think that, that's an interesting thing that Messiah has in this verse number 6 over here. Let's see what else we got over here. All right, so does anybody have any thoughts, questions, or comments before we go ahead and are done for today? Okay, I want to, just as we begin to be done for today, I want to go over to just kind of lastly to Proverbs. Proverbs 2, 1 through 5. If we could just read that.
Proverbs chapter 2. My son, if you accept my words and treasure up my commands with you, so that you make your ear to attain to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. Keep going.
Yeah, 2 verse 5.
Oh, the 5. Okay. So that you make your ear to attend to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry for discernment, lift up your voice for understanding. If you seek her as silver and search for her as a hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of Yahweh and find the knowledge of Elohim.
Okay, very good. It's interesting that when you think about the fear of Yahweh being the beginning of wisdom, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. But when we look at this verse over here, there's all of these things that are kind of beginning, right? If we get to verse 5, it says, then, after you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you would understand the fear of Yahweh, which is the beginning of wisdom. So before that, you have to make your ear attend to wisdom. You got to be, oh, that's wisdom? Let me see what that is. You have to incline your heart to understand. You have to have like a desire for a thing first, right? For if you cry for discernment, right? You're seeking to have an understanding for this or that. Lift up your voice for understanding. Seek her, wisdom, as silver. I wonder how hard it is to find silver. But you got to seek it, right? Search for her, wisdom, as hidden treasures.
Yep.
And so when you think about the things that Messiah is saying over here, you know, what the especially in verse 6, when he's talking about this idea of holy things to the dogs and the pearls before swine, and the fact that he spoke to his disciples in parables, is the fact that people need to have a want and a desire for the things of the Most High. And so if you don't want to know about what it is that the Most High is saying or has said, or understanding his character, for me to talk about it to you is you don't care about it. You don't care about those things, right? Because you don't have a desire for it, right? But these verses over in Proverbs are very interesting, because all of those things, that desire, that yearning, that seeking, that searching, is all it's all kind of it leads up to the fear of Yahweh, which is the beginning. You know, when I seek to know a thing, right, I get into research mode. And I start trying to seek to understand a thing. Right? And I go and I figure out who is the experts, and I go and hear what they have to say about the thing. And so Messiah, who, you know, has created this system, this model, you know, desires for us to follow these same methods out as it relates to walking after him. He, of course, is the master. He, of course, is the fountain of life. But the way that he set it up is for us people to bring people to the fountain so that they can drink. Right? He might be this river that's flowing and cause you to be rivers of living water. But somebody got to bring you to the water so that you can not only come to the water but also drink. And so it's necessary for us to be able to understand, you know, and that's why I wanted to go back and look at some of these things, especially when we think about this idea of reproving and correction and judging. You know, these are things that are part of this walk that we live in. And not only should we be doing those things, but we should also be coveting. We should be desiring those things within our own selves, so that we can be the people that He would have for us to be.
If you don't got a desire, then you lack the drive. You don't got that desire, that motivation.
That's it, and that's it's real basic. If I don't want to do a thing, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It seems elementary, but it kind of really is. You got to have a desire and a want to do it, so that you can, in fact, do it.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, does anybody have any last questions or comments about any of that? Okay. So that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and be done for now. We have so many things going on locally. I'm so excited about some of the things that are going to be unfolding in the near future. We praise Yahweh for all of the things that are going on. I guess everyone will, in fact, be able to know and see what's going on in the near future. We got many things going on. So we'll talk about those things later. Cliffhanger. All right, so for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Y'all willing, we will be back on next Shabbat.
Oh yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thanks for beating us.
I
Bye.
stop it.